Exclusive audio recordings have surfaced, shedding light on the escalating tensions within the Lamb family at Daystar Television. These revelations reveal how Joni Lamb, co-founder of Daystar, allegedly pressured her son Jonathan and his wife Susie into making their private struggles public. The recordings expose a deeply troubling power dynamic and a harsh confrontation, where Jonathan and Susie's attempts to resolve matters within the family were met with resistance and spiritual manipulation. As the drama unfolds, these audio clips provide a rare and candid look into the private conflicts that have rocked the foundation of Daystar. The unfolding drama at Daystar Television. The situation at Daystar Television has become one of the most talked-about stories in the Christian community. What began as a simple family conflict has escalated into a full-blown public spectacle, drawing attention not only from Christian followers, but from media outlets as well. As the details of the internal struggles at Daystar continue to surface, it is evident that what's at stake is much more than a fight for control or power. It's about the very heart of Christian values, accountability, and leadership. At the center of the controversy are the Lamb family members, Jonathan Lamb and Susie Lamb, whose relationship with Daystar co-founder Joni Lamb, Jonathan's mother, has become increasingly strained. The family feud has only deepened with the involvement of other prominent figures at Daystar, including Doug Weiss, Jimmy Evans, and others. The tension is palpable, and the stakes are high, as the Lambs fight to clear their names and expose what they believe to be wrongdoings within the organization. This dramatic rift has been made even more public with the release of leaked audio clips, interviews, and behind-the-scenes recordings that paint a troubling picture of what's been going on at Daystar. For some, the audio reveals a toxic culture of manipulation, spiritual abuse, and an overwhelming desire to control the narrative at all costs. These revelations are forcing the Christian community to take sides, and with so many conflicting accounts, it's hard to discern the full truth. However, the one thing that remains indisputable is the pain and suffering that this situation has caused. The crux of the issue: trust and betrayal. A key element in this unfolding drama is trust, specifically the breakdown of trust within the Lamb family and with Daystar's leadership. For Jonathan and Susie, what began as a series of disagreements over leadership decisions has evolved into a much more personal and painful betrayal. Jonathan has been open about the deep emotional toll that the situation has taken on him. His correspondence reveals a raw and painful narrative in which he describes how his parents, Marcus and Joni Lamb, repeatedly failed to support him and his wife in their most difficult moments. One of the most heartbreaking revelations centers around the alleged cover-up of a sexual abuse incident involving Jonathan and Susie's child. According to Jonathan, this alleged abuse was not only ignored, but actively suppressed by Daystar's leadership, which included his own mother and father. Jonathan's email paints a vivid picture of the struggle that he and Susie faced as they tried to resolve this issue privately within the family, hoping to avoid a public scandal. But instead of finding understanding and support from the people they trusted most, they were met with resistance, dismissal, and in some cases, outright hostility. A letter to the leadership, pleading for justice. The emotional weight of Jonathan's letter to Daystar leadership is difficult to ignore. As he recounted their efforts to keep the situation contained, the pain of feeling betrayed and powerless is evident. He writes in stark detail about how his family went above and beyond to honor the leadership of Daystar, especially in relation to his mother, Joni. Despite their best efforts to resolve conflicts privately, the Lambs were continuously pushed to the margins, their voices dismissed as unimportant. In the letter, Jonathan explains that they initially tried to address the disagreement over Joni's remarriage without making it a public issue. But when their convictions, grounded in biblical teachings, were challenged, they were forced to stand firm in their beliefs. This was no small decision, as it meant going against their own mother's choices, something no child ever wants to do. The Lambs have always stood by the principle of supporting marriage as God intended, and they could not, in good conscience, endorse Joni's remarriage to Doug Weiss, who was previously married and divorced. Jonathan describes a meeting where he and Susie were verbally assaulted for their beliefs. Joni, who they felt should have been a pillar of support, instead allegedly blamed Susie for the trauma caused by their daughter's abuse. This meeting, in Jonathan's words, was more than just an argument. It was an emotional and spiritual violation. The Lambs were accused of trying to destroy their family, even as they were simply trying to protect their daughter and stand by their convictions. Spiritual abuse and manipulation. One of the most concerning aspects of Jonathan's account is the claim of spiritual abuse and manipulation. Jonathan recalls how he and Susie were essentially coerced into abandoning their convictions for the sake of peace and loyalty to Joni. When they refused to compromise, they were subjected to harsh threats, ridicule, and even spiritual intimidation. Jimmy Evans, a key leader at Daystar, allegedly told Jonathan and Susie that they had no room to follow their consciences because Joni was the voice of God at Daystar. This is a deeply troubling statement. For a Christian leader to assert that their authority is equal to that of God's voice is not only manipulative, but also spiritually dangerous. Jonathan and Susie were told, in no uncertain terms, that if they did not comply, they would face severe consequences, including the potential loss of their positions at Daystar. This type of authoritarian control is something that many in the Christian community view as spiritually abusive. Perhaps even more painful was the claim that the abuse of their daughter was used as a weapon in these discussions. Jonathan accuses Joni of using the very trauma their family had experienced as a means to silence them. According to Jonathan, Joni allegedly blamed Susie for the abuse, accusing her of being prideful and even evil for standing by her convictions. The emotional cruelty of this situation is hard to fathom, especially when viewed through the lens of a mother's desperate desire to protect her family. But for Jonathan and Susie, this was not just an argument, it was a betrayal on every level. The culture of silence and cover-ups. One of the most striking aspects of the entire situation is the culture of silence and cover-ups that Jonathan and Susie believe permeates Daystar. The Lambs have made it clear that their goal is not to bring shame to their family or to tear down the ministry they once held dear. Instead, they are fighting for accountability and transparency. They believe that the truth has been deliberately obscured, and they are determined to bring it to light, even if it costs them everything. In Jonathan's letter, he states that despite the pain and trauma they've experienced, he and Susie remain committed to reconciliation, on the condition that there is genuine repentance and a willingness to address the wrongs that have been done. This is not about vengeance or seeking to destroy Daystar. Rather, it is about holding leaders accountable for their actions and ensuring that justice is done for their daughter. Jonathan makes it clear that he and Susie are still open to reconciliation, but only if the leadership at Daystar is willing to admit their mistakes and take real action. This desire for justice is rooted in Jonathan's faith. He references several Bible verses, including Ephesians 5:11, which calls Christians to expose the fruitless deeds of darkness, and Psalm 82:3-4, which urges believers to defend the weak and uphold justice. Jonathan and Susie believe that the actions of Daystar's leadership go against these biblical principles, and they are determined to fight for what they believe is right, even if it means confronting their own family. The heart of the matter: accountability and humility. At the heart of this entire conflict lies a question that transcends the specifics of this family drama. Where is the accountability and humility in leadership? Jonathan and Susie are not simply challenging the actions of their family members. They are challenging the broader culture of Christian leadership that prioritizes image and authority over truth and justice. In his letter, Jonathan reflects on how difficult it has been to maintain his love and respect for his mother while standing by his convictions. He acknowledges the pain of having to take a stand against someone he deeply cares about, but makes it clear that he could not, in good conscience, go along with decisions that he believed were morally and spiritually wrong. For Jonathan, this is not about personal animosity or power struggles. This is about faithfulness to what he believes is the truth. The situation raises important questions for the broader Christian community. How do we navigate disagreements while maintaining a commitment to truth and justice? How do we hold leaders accountable without falling into division and conflict? These are difficult questions, but they are essential if the church is to remain a place where integrity, humility, and accountability are valued above all else. The bigger picture: a wake-up call for the church. As this situation continues to unfold, it serves as a sobering reminder of the need for transparency and accountability within Christian organizations, especially those with such a wide-reaching influence as Daystar. Jonathan and Susie's fight for justice is not just a personal one. It is a fight for the integrity of the ministry they once believed in and for the protection of future generations. For those of us watching from the outside, this is a wake-up call. We are reminded that true leadership in the church requires humility, the ability to listen, and a willingness to be held accountable. It is not enough to hold others to high standards while excusing our own failures. The Lamb family's ordeal is a painful but necessary lesson in what happens when leaders fail to live up to the very values they preach. As we continue to witness the unfolding drama at Daystar, we must ask ourselves, are these leaders truly practicing what they preach? Are they standing firm in their convictions? Or are they using their power to control and manipulate? And most importantly, how can we, as a church, create an environment where truth, accountability, and justice are not only valued, but actively pursued? The questions may be difficult, but they are essential. The answers may take time, but they will shape the future of Christian leadership for years to come.